2019 budget hearing number 1, preliminary balanced budget, statutory presentation of 2019 preliminary balanced budget. Sherry Cassidy, CFO, Financial Services.
Good morning, Commissioners. Annually, we are to present a preliminary balanced budget. Statutorily, we're to present this before October 15th of each year. At this point, the preliminary balanced budget will be open for public inspection until the original adopted budget is adopted, and we're scheduling that for November 29th. So this is a presentation outlining what is in the budget document and how we got to that point. So historical information, we had the discretionary budget historically since 2007. You can see in 2007 we were at $180 per person for our discretionary money funding, and you can see where it dropped with the Great Recession, and it is now recovering. So in 2018 it recovered back up to $175 per person. On the historical review, some of the challenges we've had is we've had significant reductions to the property tax revenue of $444 million. Part of that was in 1995, we were actually at 12 mills. And over the years, because of various items that's come up, we've had temporary reductions that became permanent, and it dropped down to 7.821 mills in 2003. And since that time, we have been recovering some. The mill levy and the business personal property tax portion was eliminated in between 1998 and 2001. We've had TABOR restrictions between 2003 and 2015 of $75.5 million, and then we did have the 2016 TABOR refund. We requested a reset of the base in 2017, which was approved. 2002 to 2005, we had budget reductions to address unfunded mandates. We had the courthouse and jail that we had to construct that caused service reductions to address the unfunded mandate of this. That's about $7 million annually. 2006 to 2009, we had our budgets reduced by 27% because of the Great Recession, and our workforce was also reduced by 12%. Part of those reductions were the facilities major maintenance, PC printer replacement, fleet replacement, and forest management and fire mitigation. Some other challenges was the property tax impacts during the Great Recession of $14 million. And then during that same time frame, we had the 4 natural disasters of $10.9 million. The Great Recession, the property taxes for the Great Recession, that's actually a delayed effect on that, and I've got a chart later that will show that effect. But even though the Great Recession was during 2008, 2009, the effects of those reassessments didn't impact the county until 2012. And so then we also, in part of the turnaround is we had in 2013, we had the public safety tax came into effect, so 0.23%. That was $17 million plus annually that helped fund the public safety items that were constant critical needs every year. We had the economic recovery of sales tax in 2013. In 2015, we started our financial roadmap process. And then during 2015 to 2018, we've been reinvesting in our operations as part of our road to recovery. In 2018 and 19, now we're seeing the discretionary revenue per citizen return to the pre-2009 levels. And during this recovery period, we've addressed the local share of 4 nationally declared disasters. We had our Strategic Moves initiative, which really helped out on our building situation. We were able to address CSC. We acquired CSC. We renovated Centennial Hall. We renovated the building on Burmahoe, so that allowed our sheriff's headquarters to move there. We built a new area for the coroner. We have the relocated public health, DHS, clerk and recorder, treasurer, and assessor out to CSC. And then in 2013, the dedicated public safety tax began to address the deficits in public safety. This allowed for other critical needs to be addressed during the budget hearings. The full recovery of property tax occurred in 2016, so now we're beginning to address critical operational and capital backlogs. The 5-year forecast, the 5-year roadmap process, that ensures stability of the budget changes. And some of the TABOR implications, in 2013, we had a TABOR excess revenue of $2 million. So the year after that, we asked the voters to retain that for parks projects, and they did approve it, so that was in our 2015 budget. In 2016, we had the TABOR excess revenue of $14.5 million. So in 2017, the voters approved that and the reset of the base. So with the $14.5 million, we put $6 million towards the I-25 gap, $6 million towards high-impact road safety projects, $1.5 million towards parks infrastructure, and then another $1 million towards the fire and flood recovery projects. So what we have been doing this year to arrive at the preliminary balanced budget, this is part of our budget process. Our budget process policy starts the process. It outlines the process. So in section 5.2, that's where we started the year. That outlines restricted funds, partially restricted funds, and unrestricted funds, and our process to balance each one of those. So in section 5.3, we've completed these items: road and bridge escrow, conservation trust fund, household hazardous waste fund, the schools trust fund, and local improvement districts. The local improvement districts, we have one right now, and that's Falcon Vista. On the next section in our budget process policy is for the partially restricted funds. That includes community investment fund. On that one, we ensure that the funding for the annual lease obligations is appropriated. And then this, and for our community investment fund for 2019, that budget includes the Series 2007 refunding savings that we had. Self-insurance fund, we have that balanced right now. We need to ensure that funding for anticipated insurance claims are there. We have had significant discussions with our benefits consulting about the increasing healthcare costs. We've done some extensive analysis with them. We've assessed if this is an extended peak on what we're seeing. On the self-insurance fund, we usually see 5-year peaks and valleys on it. And the last 2 years, it seems like it's been an extended peak. So what we're looking at is saying, is this the new normal? Or is this just an extended peak and it'll go back down to what our normal has been in the past? What they're looking at, and one of the things that they stated in our Health Trust Board meeting the other day is that actuarially we're still below what they would expect to see for an organization our size. Right now we have 19 claims that are over $100,000 each. They said an organization our size would normally have 21 at this point. And then the claims over 200,000, they said they would expect us to see 6.6 claims over 200,000 at this point, and we're at 4. So they said we're actually doing very well compared to other organizations our size. So we just need to keep on moving forward with it, and we'll just continue to watch it. Some of the other items is increased liability insurance costs. Of course, all insurance costs are just going up, so we've looked at that. We've budgeted for that. Those items includes we have the liability insurance, and then we also have building insurance, workers' compensation, unemployment, and cyber insurance. All of those items are contained within the self-insurance fund. So we've looked at each of those items individually, developed a budget going forward on it, and we feel pretty confident that we have a good number budgeted in there for 2019. We also have to include reserves for the GASB required fund balance for the incurred but not reported. And that is also actuarially determined. I can never say that word. So we never know what that number is until March of the following year. But based on how it has increased each of the prior years, we also feel like we have the funding in place to cover that. For the Department of Human Services, we've ensured that the funding for the statutory county match is in place. DHS actually has an increase of $10.3 million across all programs and services right now. The increase of the county match for that is just $520,000. Typically, we always look at an 80-20 ratio, but because of additional allocations, we've offset a lot of that by the earned incentives. And then also there's been significant reorganization costs. So we have that covered, that the statutory required amount covered for that. Yeah.
Commissioner Gonzalez, go ahead.
Thanks. So the increase in county match, that comes from the general fund?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Sales tax. On the Road and Bridge Fund, I've got some additional slides later, so I'll just go real briefly on this one. We do have it balanced. We're on a multi-year plan to address the backlog of the road infrastructure, and then additional funding can be provided through the roadmap at your discretion. For the unrestricted general fund, that is in process right now. Our revenue estimates, our sales and use tax is up a little over 6% through July. I will go into more detail on that one when I present the board report here in a couple of weeks on for the July and then the August expenditures. This includes 2 months of higher collections due to the hailstorms. We're still really unsure. We were fairly confident that it would be $1 million after the first hailstorm, that it would be increased sales and use tax. But with that second hailstorm, because of the timing of it, and it hit the same area as the first one hit, we're unsure as to how much additional revenue that will be, because a lot of people got hit twice. So we don't know, was the roof already repaired first and then it was repaired a second time, or had it not been repaired yet after the first one, and so then it's the same claim, basically. So we're monitoring that. Retail is up a little over 6%. Food services is up 7.18%, and accommodations is up 6.78%. So that's a lot of the items, the areas that we really watch. The average increase over the last 5 years is 6.21%. Our ongoing trending, we actually reduced the trending amount by $1 million from what we had collected in 2017. By the end of 2017, we saw that it didn't finish as strong as we expected. So we reduced our ongoing trending by $1 million and then put 4.5% above that for our 2019 estimate. And we were excluding all of the one-time hail effects of the sales tax collection. So our 2019 sales and use tax preliminary budget is at $111.1 million. And this is a historical sales tax projection here. Back in 2007, we were at $69.1 million, and then you can see the effects of the Great Recession where it really pulled us down in 2009. And then 2010, we started slowly recovering all the way up until 2017. In 2017, that's where we thought we would be at $102.2 million at the end of the year. We finished a little bit down, so that's where we've made the adjustments then forward into 2018 and then into 2019. On the property tax, our revenue increase, we're estimating a revenue increase of 1.59% up to $52.5 million. This is based on the preliminary certification of assessment through August 25th. The assessor's office will do the final assessment. It's due, I think it's December 10th. It's in December. And at that point, then we'll have the final assessments. But we will have some updated numbers from him. At this time of the year, we get numbers every couple of weeks from him, so we make sure that we're putting that into our calculations and seeing where we stand on it. We have an allowable abatement mill right now of 0.103 mils. That equates to about $700,000. We have a projected mill levy of 8.068, which is collectible in 2019. We're currently collecting from the 2017 assessed, and that estimate is at 51.7 that we'll collect by the end of the year. This is the chart of our historical sales property tax, and that's where you can see that in 2007 through 2011, the property tax was actually still growing, even though in 2008 and 2009 is where the recession was. That's just the delay of the reassessments. So our last year of real growth before the recession impacts hit was in 2011. And then you can see the big drop in 2012 when the reassessments, the effects of the reassessments hit our property tax. So now out in 2016, that's the first year then that we really recovered from the recession for the property taxes. With the 10-county comparison, we always like to show this chart that shows our citizens that, you know, they do pay a lot lower sales tax or property taxes than other large counties. Our neighbors, of course, is Douglas County. They pay almost $412 per person. And then the other one that's close to us is Pueblo, who pays $302.48 per person. And our property tax per person is at $74.09. On section, the additional revenue estimates is the specific ownership tax budget. We have increased that for 2019 by $100,000. We actually took into effect the decrease of the $600,000 from this year that we discovered because of the specific ownerships tax and some ballot issues that had occurred. And then a natural increase then of between 2018 to 2019 of $700,000. So that was a net of $100,000 increase. One of the items that we do want you to be aware of is there are 3 ballot issues on for November. And it's Harrison District 2, Lewis Palmer District 38, and Ellicott District 22. If these ballot issues pass, then that will be a hit to our specific ownership tax. If all 3 of them pass, it'll be $328,000. So we would have to go back and adjust our estimates down after the elections based on which one passes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this was highlighted because last year's mill override of District 11
Yes.
Basically cost county revenues of close to $600,000.
Yeah, it was, yeah. It was close to $600,000.
Right?
Yeah,
So
ongoing,
that's
correct.
why this is important to understand this, how
Right.
it might affect us if all 3 were to pass.
Yes. Yeah. Other revenue items is increased in interest earnings by $50,000, developer fee budget by $349,000. The sheriff's office fees and IGAs we've reduced by $974,000. That includes the federal detentions and the gateway are the 2 big items on that. We're just, because our jail's so full, we have fewer federal detentions and then fewer gateway revenues coming in. There is a minor reduction in parks and recreation fees of $100,000 also. For our expenditure side, on our budget process, we retain the 2018 ongoing expenditure budget, and then there's some items that's written into our budget process policy that allows us to increase for items such as utilities. Utilities, we have not had to do an increase on that line in several years. We've always had underspending and been able to cover from other areas. But this year, the utilities budget for 2018, we're seeing that it's pressing the total budget. It's probably going to go over. We would be able to cover it from other underspending from somewhere else. But that's where we went ahead and increased the utilities budget for $100,000 for 2019, just because it looks to be like it's an ongoing increase that's occurring. We've incorporated the critical needs as outlined in the financial roadmap Actually, we've got those to consider. We've got the critical needs are outlined on the financial roadmap with a balanced budget on that, and I'll show that in another slide. And then with the strategy phase of the budget, we've held meetings with the countywide elected officials and department executive directors. We've reevaluated the critical needs due to increased service demands, population growth, and mandated pressures. On those, we have some additions to the 2018 roadmap. We maintain the 2018 roadmap, and then we've added some other items to it for consideration due to the other pressures that the departments and offices are seeing. The critical expenditure items to consider is the investment in our human capital management, our high-impact road safety projects, our cybersecurity and technology, our TABOR calculation impacts, our emergency funds, and then the statutory requirements and accumulated backlog of deferred operational requirements. On the human capital management, we had done a salary survey, and in 2015, we took that survey and made adjustments to employees' salaries to make sure everybody was paid at the midpoint at that point. At the minimum salary range at that point. So each year after that, we've anticipated that that minimum range would have increased. So that's where we were trying to get employees towards the midpoint to make up for where we had not reassessed what the minimum point would be. This year, what we decided to do is to retain Mountain State Employers Council to assist with updating the study to make sure that the minimum ranges were where they were supposed to be. And then also because of some issues we've had with recruiting and retaining employees, we've decided to have them look at some defined occupational groups. And on the occupational groups, we've broken them out into different areas so that, like for an engineering, right now it's been very difficult to recruit engineers. So we're breaking them out into a different area from the labor and trades, the information technology. Of course, there's a problem with information technology, recruiting those folks too. Then we have the health environment, the nursing folks are in that category, and then the public safety, and then the sworn. Pretty much most of the employees fall into the business operations area, but then we've broken out those other areas too. On the high impact road safety, on the investment in human capital, we should have that study complete by early October. So then we'll have what they feel like the new ranges are going to be, and then we will evaluate where all of the employees stand based on which category they fall into, and then we'll have some recommendations as to how to use the funding that we have in the roadmap to get people to the new minimum, and then how to provide salary increases for others. On the high-impact road safety projects, in the 2018 budget, we had the $14.5 million that was invested, $6 million from the TABOR, $1 million was additional ongoing funds, $6 million was the I-25 gap match, and then another $1.5 million was the rest of the I-25 gap match from our discretionary revenues. And for the 2019 through 2023, the roadmap has infrastructure as a top priority. And on this chart, we put together this chart to kind of show the increases that we've provided to the Road and Bridge Fund. In 2016, we provided $2.3 million of ongoing revenue.
Question here. Commissioner
yes.
Gonzalez.
Thank you. Could you go back a slide, please? So the $6 million TABOR, that was for the road projects. That was not the I-25, so I-25. Okay.
Right, yeah. So,
Got it. And I saw $6 million, that confused me.
yeah,
So
one of the $6 million was for
one was the multiple projects
yes.
things in the county.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then the other one was the I-25 gap match.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and then this slide here will show that too. So we had the ongoing revenue from $2.3 million that was approved in 2016 and continued in 2017. In 2018, that $2.3 million is still there, and then we added an additional $1 million for ongoing budget increase. And then there's the $12 million. That's the combination between the I-25 gap and then the other road projects, and then the $1.5 million of discretionary revenue for the I-25 gap project. And in 2019, our recommendation is that we maintain the ongoing $2.3 million and also then the $1 million from 2018, plus an additional $7 million ongoing on top of that. So that would give us a total of $10.3 million in 2019. And then the continued roadmap on that would get us to $10.8 million in 2020, $11.8 million in 2021, $15 million in 2022, and then $16 million in 2023. And that is how our roadmap is outlined right now, and that's what we plan on getting to by 2023. On the cybersecurity and technology, there's been increasing threat profiles over the last 5 years with the cybersecurity issues. We must protect our citizens and employees. We just passed a policy that's effective September 1st on personal identifying information. That's to help prevent any issues of somebody's PII being exposed to the public. If something does get exposed, we estimated that it would be about $500,000 on each incident for credit monitoring that we may have to purchase. Some cyber attacks that have happened in very recent history. CDOT had a cyber attack that cost them about $1.5 million and took them 6 weeks to recover from. This was earlier this year. And actually, after that 6 weeks, they were only really at 80% recovered. Baltimore had their 911 system hacked, and they were down for 17 hours. Mecklenburg County in North Carolina, it took them 60 days to recover. I didn't see a cost that they had, but I do know that they had 60 days of limited services. In Atlanta, it's taken them many weeks to recover. That was also earlier this year, and they have estimated that it cost them about $20 million to recover. And in these cases, they did have cyber insurance to help cover some of those costs, but the thing is, once it hits, you're down. You're going to be down for weeks, and that's what we are doing everything we can to try to avoid that situation. On our Tabor calculation impacts, we want to stress that the Tabor calculation impacts, these are very preliminary numbers. Our CPI estimate is only through June. Our growth calculation is only through August. There are a lot of numbers, additional numbers to come in on these. Where we are right now, though, is we do have $1.1 million reserved for Tabor overage in our 2019 roadmap. That could go up or down. If the CPI goes up, then our Tabor refund amount would go down. And that's where it's going to be about 6 months before we have any kind of final numbers on that. So we always have to project out what we feel like it's going to be based on the numbers that we have today. And then hope that the CPI increase and then the growth calculation, if those are increased from what we're estimating today, then the Tabor impact will go down.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question. Part of how we do the Tabor calculation is we start from a basis of population projections, and population increases are not, as I understand it from statute, have an impact on Tabor. If population goes up, we can account for increased revenues because of population growth. So I think it might be worthwhile to maybe just make sure we validate what the population is in our county, and I'll make a point here, and it's just some preliminary research that I did. On another chart that I had seen at the end of 2017, it looked like we had a population of 694,000 and change as far as people, and that was coming from the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, which is the reference here on this chart.
Right.
But when I look at the U.S. Census Bureau, in July of 2017, they were showing that we had a population of 699,000, which is 5,000 higher than our end-of-year number coming from the Department of Local Affairs. So it makes me wonder if we've really got valid population. I'd say if we have a higher population than what the Bureau of Local Affairs is using, that may have and we can use that higher number, assuming the statute or the state would let us use it, or maybe we need to convince them that we have a different population number. That could potentially positively affect the Tabor calculations. Mm-hmm. It would also reduce the cost per citizen for 2017 and 2018 and beyond. So I just want to make sure we have the right number, and maybe we're stuck with this Department of Local Affairs, but I have to tell you, I think we've got more people in this county than the numbers they're showing.
Yeah, and we do watch the population figures very closely, but the way the county actually does, the way the state has the county do it, is it's based on the growth, the new construction, is how our growth figure is calculated on. So that's where the assessor captures our growth based on new houses, new buildings built, and then it's the assessed value on that. So I think the state uses population, but the counties use new construction. So it's new construction plus the CPI. And I mean, population, of course, does come in as a big factor on that because it's new people moving into the county. They're building new homes. They're creating new businesses. But our calculation is actually on the assessed value of new growth on.
Yeah, and are we directed by the state to calculate it that way, or?
Yes.
We are?
We are.
Okay. Because I can then say that whatever that formula is for calculating population doesn't appear to be consistent with what the Census Bureau actually is saying.
Right, yeah, and we do use the Department of Local Affairs, the DOLA, when we are looking at any of our population figures in any of the charts that we do, just for consistency purposes.
Yeah.
We take DOLA because they have a methodology to project it out.
And I'll just make one last point on that, and I don't know if there's any chance of making a change with that or talking to DOLA about it, but at the end of 2017, and I just can't remember the statistical reference that I saw, but I do remember being told that the El Paso County population was 732,000, and apparently the DOLA number at the end of 2017 is 694. So that's like 30,000 more people, and that can potentially make a huge difference as far as what our top cap Tabor calculations are and things like that. So I don't know if there's anything we can do with it, but I have a little concern about what's being calculated as far as our population. So I'll leave it at that, but thank you.
Okay. The next item is our emergency reserve funds. In the 2018 budget hearings, what we decided to do is take the beginning reserve, and then we added underspending and unanticipated revenue. So we ended the year, or we started the fiscal year 2018 with reserves of a little bit over $1.5 million. So for the 2019 budget strategy, we're looking to add any 2018 general fund unrestricted underspending and unanticipated revenue. So if our anticipated amounts are about $1 million of underspending and around $300,000 of unanticipated revenue. So then we would end 2018 at about $2.8 million of reserves. And of course, that can go up and down anytime before the end of the year. On number 6, item 6, that's the statutory requirements and accumulated backlog of deferred operational requirements. Some of that is that there's pressures for county services as they go up consistently and across all areas. That's due to population growth, new people moving into the county. Additional mandates or needed services. We had deferred a lot of those during the Great Recession. We have these needs outlined in the roadmap. And with reinvestments and operations, we're able to form studies to assess the full needs. The results of these studies We can better articulate them now, so that's why they're coming into our roadmap. We have cybersecurity and technology. You know, these are more things that are coming up in more recently now. We have roads and drainage issues, the human capital, facilities, and then legal. So that's all of the things that's a lot of the new items that have been added into the roadmap. Our 2019 discretionary revenue per citizen is estimated to be around $180 per citizen. And with these new needs, and after our studies, we're estimating that we should probably be at a level of about $205 per citizen to provide the appropriate funding for all offices and departments. This would basically be if we took all of the roadmap that's been spread out now over 5 years to balance, if it was all funded today, that we should be at $205 discretionary revenue.
Just going quickly back to the reserve, looking at our balance, what is that in relationship to our percentage? I'm just trying to get a sense of, you know, the amount we're holding back in reserves as a precautionary measure.
I'd have to get back with you on that exact percentage, because we have several different categories in the reserve. This part is just the emergency reserve. We, of course, have the Tabor reserve, and then we have a cash flow reserve, and then some other restricted reserves. But we can get back with you on that one. Our population growth, I do have a chart on that, and with DOLA's figures, our population growth, it's grown 23% since 2007. So they are estimating that we would be at 724,000 citizens in 2019. That's about 135,000 additional citizens since 2017. Our cost per citizen, and I've included our target cost out here too. Our cost per citizen, you can see where it dropped from $180 in 2007. And one of the things with the $180,000 in 2007, at that time, that is not how the county looks and operates now. In 2007, you know, we were doing a lot of other things. We were forced to take a step back. We became more innovative. We optimized the use of technology. We had found some alternative revenue streams to help cover items. We leveraged federal funds. We came up with new business models on how to do things. We consolidate a lot of core functions, and then we also optimized our employee expertise. So at that, we were able to weather the Great Recession, and then we dropped all the way down to a low of $136 per person in 2012. And of course, that's the time then that the property tax Great Recession effects started hitting. Our sales tax started recovering at that time, so that's where we went up. And then in 2016, we had to drop back down again. We had to reserve those funds for that Tabor refund of the $14.5 million. Then we were able to reset the base in 2017, and we're slowly climbing up again. And so that's where in 2019, we're at about $180 per person, which is equal to what we were in 2017. And again, that's where I kind of feel like the target that we should be at to fund everything at a proper level is $205 a person. So on the future, our roadmap. Our available revenue in the roadmap decreased from what you saw during the presentation last year by about $2.9 million. I talked about a few of these things earlier. Our base for the sales tax decreased $1 million. Our allocation to the self-insurance fund, we increased the allocation to the self-insurance fund by $1.2 million, which of course is a drop in our discretionary revenue. We increased the projected fees and charges, decreased the base of the specific ownership tax. We had the sheriff and IGA, reduction in revenues, an increase in interest earnings, parks and recreation fees decreased $100,000, and then some other miscellaneous revenue. There was some ups and downs in it, but it was a net of $300,000. On our reserve strategy, this kind of outlines the 5-year forecast we have on the reserve strategy. So that's where we started at $1.5 million for 2019 from the 2018 excess funds. So we're anticipating we would increase it by $1 million for underspending and $300,000 for unanticipated revenue to get to 2.8. And then for underspending and unanticipated revenue in the future years, we're estimating $1 million for each of those categories out to 2023, where we would have 10.8 million in emergency reserve if we continue adding to it in this same manner. That's where we can, look at what we feel like should be a good amount of an emergency reserve. And we're looking at this to say, if there's a fire, a flood, something like that to use it for.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think, in a few years out, we're not exactly sure, I think, what the right number is. But for example, since we had the fires, the Waldo Canyon and the Black Forest and the flooding, we had basically been going from zero to maybe $500,000 in that reserve. It was almost nothing. And so our efforts last year, I think, and what we're moving forward here is something that's very important, because if we had another significant fire like that, we didn't have that revenue. And so I applaud the efforts to make sure that we revitalize and strengthen this reserve.
The department and offices for their critical needs, they have submitted $6.4 million of ongoing critical needs and $5.6 million of one-time critical needs for just 2019. Many of these projects and needs, these were items that were deferred during the Great Recession and have now become critical and urgent. Other drivers is new development, new people moving into the area, new or amended legislation, additional mandates, or expected services from the citizens. And the county will never have the resources to fund everything, but the financial roadmap provides a good framework and foundation for a sustainable budget process. And, that's what we have followed the last several years, and it seems to be working very well. This is the critical needs as submitted. So you can kind of see the items on here. I know it's tiny up there, but the coroner, he needs to add an additional forensic pathologist. We have some additional revenue in that area to help offset it. We still need another $140,000 on that. County attorney, they're having additional cases, so they're needing some additional staffing. Of course, we have parks and veteran services, district attorney. They're going to be adding 2 new courtrooms. So in that situation, we need to build the courtrooms, but the district attorney also has to have prosecutors to support those judges. The fleet items, we had a couple of fleet items that were submitted. And then road and bridges items are on here because that's as submitted, but they will be covered through any changes in the roadmap that we provide to them. Part of that $7 million will help cover road and bridge for their critical items. On this page is a lot of facilities items. After we've gone back and looked at everything, we had the strategic moves that we did back in 2012. We got a lot of departments and offices moved around, but at this point now we have very large backlogs in maintenance for facilities, so that's a lot of the items that has been outlined as one-time items for 2019. Other items on here is the health department. They're having the same issues that everybody else is having, is that the population has increased. They still have the same amount of staff, the same amount of budget. So we're trying to get them some additional staff. They had requested $250,000 each year for 4 years to get them up to another $1 million. But we have had to revise this down, as you'll see in the finalized roadmap we have. And then human resources, and then IT, they have their very large needs down there, the software maintenance, the additional security measures, and then the Microsoft Office lifecycle changes.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question, and it's back on page 36. It's the county parks capital projects, and this is a chart of 2019 critical needs. but on that particular line, it says 2020.
Yeah, on the roadmap, they had $750,000 ongoing starting in 2020. They requested that the $750,000 start in 2019. So that's what this is. It's almost like a one-time for the 750 to start early, 1 year early in 2019, but they already have approved from 2020 on in the roadmap.
Okay, so that's why it's appropriate to have a 2020 item here in the critical needs for 2019.
Yeah, it is a 2019 request for them.
Okay.
But it's for it was a future roadmap item that was already approved. They just asked for it to start a year earlier, so that's why it's on here.
Thank you.
So then during the strategy phase, we had several meetings with the elected officials and the department heads, and we arrived at our balanced financial roadmap. And part of this is we had the beginning operational savings. We took our available fund balance savings and then also the Series 2007 refunding savings that we had. So we had a beginning operational savings of about $8.2 million. And then we took our revenues less our expenditures that was already the 2018 expenditures that were brought forward. So we had $10.1 million of additional funding available at that point. We have a reserve here for Tabor of the $1.1 million. And then the items, well, the blue item up there, that's the high impact road projects. We've got that increasing this additional $7 million for 2019, and then up to 7.5, and then increasing out to 2023. The additional 12.7 million out in
Sherry?
2023.
Question
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Could you use the mouse to kind of like point to where you're talking to so we can follow along better with you?
There it is.
Thank you.
So there's the blue line.
Okay.
I was pointing on my paper, but I don't think you can see that.
I understand, but we can't quite see that. We're good,
Yeah.
but we're not that good.
So there's the blue line there for the additional road projects. So we've got $7 million here, and it increases to $7.5 million. And this is in addition to the 3.3 ongoing that's already approved. And then this would be then an increase out here, all the way out to an increase of the, that's hard to see on that blue, of 12.7 million out there, which gets us to $16 million ongoing for roads. This is where we've had our ongoing salary amount, and this is for the equity adjustments and any pay for performance, cost of living. That's the number there. That the way it is split out will probably change after we get the results of the salary survey. Everything in white up here was already on the roadmap from 2018. Everything down here in the purple color are new items that we've had to make adjustments to in order to balance. And that's where I know it shows a $2.5 million balance here, but in 2020, we have that odd situation of where we're going to have 27 paychecks. So we had to make sure that we had the funding available for that, and it is built into the budget. That's why we went from $2.5 million available here to only $650,000 available here, and then it goes back up again after that. One of the other things that we had to do to balance 2020 is, as you can see, these increases for salaries went from 2019 to 2021. We actually had to eliminate the 2.3 and the 1.4 million that we had right here for 2019. We pushed it out a year in order to balance down here. So we do have a little bit left over in 2020 that, you know, we could look at that for any additional needs you might have right now. That would be an ongoing amount there. But this is how we arrived at the balanced roadmap. And, you know, the departments and offices in the October 16th and October 18th budget hearings that we will have, they will outline what all of their requests are, what they need them for. But a lot of these items we had to reduce from their original request on the prior pages in order to balance here. And then The last couple of slides, this is our goals that our budget meets or addresses, Goal 3 and Goal 5. And then for our preliminary balanced budget, we had the offsites on August 9th and then again on September 5th. Our budget hearing number 1 is, of course, today. And then future hearings, we will be on October 16th and 18th, the critical needs presentations. I will have an updated revenue projection and 5-year forecast at that time. The Citizen Outreach Group will do presentations to the board for what their recommendations are. On November 8th, and then that's where, again, this budget will be open for public inspection all the way through this entire process. It's posted out online right now, so any citizen can look at it. On November 8th, we will come back to you for final direction. So after the offices and departments have made all of their presentations to you, then on November 8th, we'll come back again with updated revenue figures and updated roadmap, funds available. We'll have a better idea of where Tabor might be landing at that point. And then you could add any items or make any changes at that time to the roadmap. Then the roadmap would be finalized. We would incorporate that into the original adopted budget, which we will bring back to you on November 29th for adoption. And if there's no other questions on the presentation, then I'll briefly go through the balanced budget document. Okay.
More of a, if there are groups out there that want to essentially come to us and ask for funding considerations, when is the best time to do that, and how should they submit their request? I know the answer to this, I'm just making a record.
Yeah, for any additional funding request, that should always come through the budget office, and they can contact me for that, or if they wanted to contact any commissioners, then they can also do that, and we can.
Well, I'm more concerned about timing so that it gets built in. Let's say they wanted to come make a presentation to this body to consider this prior to our markup.
Oh, right, yeah, they should do that at any board meeting prior to November 9th. And can I go to the Adobe document, to the PDF now? This is our official preliminary balanced budget document, and we have the index on that. On this page, this is your discretionary revenue. I'll use my mouse on this one. So this is all of our revenues that we have available. This is revenues, sales tax, property tax, restricted funds. This is all revenue that the county will receive, is anticipated to receive in 2019. So that's a total of $370.8 million. Some items that are restricted is, we have the public safety sales and use tax. We're anticipating that's going to be at $25.7 million in 2019. And then we also have the property tax pass-through to the cities and towns. And that's part of the property tax mill levy match. We split the road and bridge mill levy with the cities and towns. And then we have the other legally restricted revenue sources. So then we get to $198.6 million of discretionary revenue sources. From those sources, we have some legally restricted uses that we also subtract out of that. That's the road and bridge and fleet operations because of the revenue sources that are coming into that. The human resources, that's our county match on that. And then we also have the annual lease obligations, and then the employee benefits and retirement. This is what the employees pay in, and then also their retirement. So then that gets us down to the $130.2 million of discretionary revenue for you to decide how it's to be used. On the, this is some of the charts that are similar to the ones that was in the other presentation. This is actually the daily cost per citizen. This is equivalent to the $180 that you saw for the annual cost. We just broke it down into a daily cost, so it's 49 cents a day. And then if we took that $205 that we were talking about earlier, that would take it up to 56 cents per day per citizen. This is the revenues broken down into major categories. The green up here is the legally restricted items. Then here's our sales and use tax and our property tax. So those are the great big chunks. The public safety tax is over here. We also have fees and charges and then some other minor items. This is the expenditures by major category. Our budget is 62% of our budget is personnel, the big purple one here. And then operating is what, 36%, and then we have 2% for capital. This is the general fund unrestricted expenditures broken down. We have the big part of that is our public safety area. That's the coroner, the district attorney, the sheriff, our security is also in here. We have that broken down further in another chart. Then here's all of the other department and offices around here. HR, risk management. And then breaking down the administration part of it.
Can we go back to the last chart,
sorry.
please?
That chart.
I just want to be clear about this. So public safety, that's unrestricted general funds. That doesn't include our restricted public safety tax, and it's still 51% of our budget, not including the public safety tax, goes to public safety.
Correct, yes. And then the general fund unrestricted expenditures, this is just the administration part here. This is the admin broken down. And the big area of that, this part over here, is facilities management. And then we also have financial services, HR, risk, the county-wide support, and public information, economic development. This is the public safety budget broken down. So the sheriff's office receives almost $51 million. That also includes security. The district attorney, their budget is at $14.3 million. The coroner is at $2.5 million. Oh, and then there's security. We did break it out. So security is at 1.4. And then the sheriff general fund support is $51 million. On this chart, this is another chart similar again to the other item. It just has some additional information at the bottom. That's the $180 per citizen per year. This is our mill levy again, just within a different document. Our mill levy for 2018 compared to all of the other counties. This is the property tax per citizen as compared to all of the other 10 large counties. And then this chart, this is the one that we put in to break down as to where the taxpayers' money goes for property tax. So in this situation, this is a District 11 homeowner. This particular household would pay $1,251 in property taxes. Of that amount, $140 is what actually comes to El Paso County. The rest of the amounts are going to all of these different, the city of Colorado Springs, the school district 11. School district 11 in this case gets $945. And so that's just broken down by all the various areas, various districts. This chart takes all of the various taxes and puts it on one chart. And even with this, El Paso County is still lower than all of the other large 10 counties in the state per citizen at $271. This is the critical needs that is in the 5-year financial roadmap right now. This is the numbers that we arrived at to get to that balanced figure that I showed you on the PowerPoint. And that's where the items in white were already in the roadmap, and then the items down in purple are the new items. And then this is the same one that you saw in the PowerPoint with the balanced amounts at the bottom. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of highlight on this is ways that we can balance this. For example, on our IT item, the request is 1.1 million. That was split into $760,000 of ongoing, $340,000 of one-time expenses. You can see that it goes down out here. The $760,000 actually decreases to $622,000. The way we're able to do that is when we run it through the cost allocation plan, we're able to recover some of that funding. So by utilizing the recoveries from that the net county cost is actually less than the $760,000. So we do that in any situation that we can. And then we get down into lots of numbers that we're required to show you, but I won't try to go through them. What this chart is changes to the revenue budget between 2018 and 2019, broken out from the various revenue sources across the top, and then the departments and funds across the side. This is the changes to the base budget, again by major category, and then by departments and offices down the side. And then that's the restricted and then the other funds. And then the preliminary balanced budget. This is the matrix that shows the entire budget with the grand total of the $370,000 of expenditures, of revenues here, and then the current budgeted $356 million of expenditures here. And that's where, again, whatever is decided on the roadmap will adjust these numbers over here on the general fund side and the road and bridge side. And then this is the fund balance estimates that we're required to have in the document. It shows our beginning fund balances, the additional revenues, less the expenses to get to an ending fund balances. And then this is the allocation of revenues by category across, the major revenue categories, and then the departments and funds down the side. And then this is the expenditures shown the same way. So that is our preliminary balanced budget. And again, it is open for public inspection. And November 9th, we will be back to get the final direction. Do you have any questions on any of this?
Questions?
And Commissioners, Nikki Simmons, County Controller, can I clarify one thing? Your question, Commissioner Glenn, about community investments. We have a deadline of October 5th. If an organization needs to come forward and ask for money, they would be directed to Mrs. Cassidy by October 5th. So she can determine if that process needs to go through the budget hearing process or if it's part of our regular community investment program. So
I misunderstood your question. Yes.
Yeah, well, I just know that there's a group out there that is like, hey, we need money. We want to come before city,
okay.
county, or whatever. And, it's like, I think it's important just to say that there's a process. When is that process? What's the deadline so it can be properly considered in accordance with all the other priorities that we have?
Yeah.
And going back to restate that, that's October 5th?
it is October 5th that they would have to come forward and let us know what type of request they have.
Okay.
So Sherry would be able to direct them through the budget process or a regular community investment process.
Right. If it's community investment process, then we have an application that they fill out to request the funds.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right.
And Nikki has her next meeting, the PIDs.
Your next meeting? Is this the PIDs or the? Okay. How long is this, or should we, do you guys want to do a quick lunch?
I can do
We have
this in
lunch.
about 5 minutes.
Okay, well, you just answered that question. Go ahead.
I need.
You've got 3.
Okay. Commissioner Glenn, just to close out the regular meeting, though, there's no addendum, there's no request for executive session, and we can adjourn the regular meeting.
Oh, thank you so much. I was like, what are you talking about? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, 13 and 14, yes. We are going to adjourn our regular meeting, and we will call to order our first Public Improvement District meeting.
Item 1, 2019 preliminary balanced budget for El Paso County PID number 1, Sherry Cassidy and Ms. Nikki Simmons.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I am here today to present to you your preliminary balanced budgets for the 5 public
It's
improvement
afternoon.
districts.
It's not morning, it's afternoon now.
Is it? Oh, 7 minutes off. Thank you for that correction, Commissioner Waller. Our statutory requirement is today present you with our preliminary budget. Public Improvement District number 1, we are anticipating revenue totals of $1.315 million, of which $505,000 is a accumulation of revenues that will be transferred from the other 2 PIDs into PID 1, approximately $800,000 of road impact fees and $10,000 of interest income. Then for expenditures, we anticipate our insurance membership fees to the Small District Association, as well as reimbursement to other entities of $1.12 million, which is essentially the ending estimated fund balance from 2018. For a net impact to fund balance of $187,000 for next year. And that is all I have on PID 1.
Any questions on that? No? Okay, keep going.
Oh.
Oh, yes. Okay, we will adjourn our first Public Improvement District, and we will call to order our second one.
Item 1, 2019 preliminary balanced budget for El Paso County PID number 2, Ms. Simmons.
Right. El Paso County Public Improvement District number 2. This is the public improvement district that has a 10 mil property tax. And so for 2019, we are expecting approximately $426,000 in property taxes and specific ownership tax based on that amount, and for a total revenue of $468,000. Operating expenditures, $480,000, which is the same number you saw for PID 1, being transferred to PID 1. And then the only other expense that comes out of that PID is the treasurer's collection fee, for a net impact to fund balance of negative $18,953, leaving an ending fund balance of $14,611.
Any questions on this one? Okay, we will adjourn our second one and call to order our Public Improvement District number 3.
Item 1, 2019 preliminary balanced budget for El Paso County PID number 3, Ms. Simmons.
El Paso County Public Improvement District number 3. This is the public improvement district that has a 5 mil property tax. And based on the preliminary certification of valuation, we are expecting $22,352 in property tax, $2,500 in specific ownership tax, and $100 in interest, for a total of $24,952 in revenue. The operating expenditures are the one-time transfer to PID 1 of $25,000, and the associated tax collection expense for the treasurer's office, for a total expenditures of $25,358, a net impact to fund balance of negative $406, for an ending fund balance of $3,254.
Okay. Any questions on this one? Seeing none, we will adjourn that one. Oh,
You have another item.
all right.
Item 2, resolution approving a petition for inclusion of property within the district. Flying Horse North filing number 1, Lori Seago.
Thank you. You recently approved the final plat for Flying Horse North filing number 1. They're asking to be included into PID number 3 for partial payment of their road impact fees.
Okay, any discussion? I'm assuming we need to vote on
Please,
including
yes.
them. Any discussion on that? I'll entertain a motion then.
Move for approval?
Second.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Waller?
Aye.
President votes aye. That passes unanimously with Commissioner Littleton excused.
Thank you.
We will now adjourn that district and call to order our next improvement district.
Commissioner, I think there were just 3.
There were actually 2 more.
I apologize, I don't have those on my agenda.
I'm showing a Strathmore Valley.
I would happily read them, I just don't have them anywhere.
Christian, can you pull them up? They're there.
Thank you. 2019 preliminary balance budget for El Paso County Strathmore Valley Streetlights PID. Ms. Simmons.
For Strathmore Valley Streetlight Public Improvement District, based on the preliminary certification evaluation, we are anticipating $23,877 in property taxes, $2,700 in specific ownership tax, approximately $750 in interest, for a total of $27,327 in revenue. The expenses in this PID are to pay for the streetlights in Strathmore Valley, and so the ongoing utility cost plus any anticipated maintenance, we're estimating about $20,000. The tax collection fee of $382 and the SDA insurance of $2,500 for total expenditures of $22,882 with a net change to fund balance of $4,445.
Okay. Any discussion or questions on this? Okay, seeing none, then we will adjourn that one. And I believe we have one more, Pioneer Village.
2019 preliminary balance budget for El Paso County Pioneer Village Roads PID. Ms. Simmons.
I think Christian and I are trying to touch it at this. There we go. All right, El Paso County Pioneer Village Roads Public Improvement District. Based on the preliminary certification evaluation, we are expecting $37,509 in property tax, $4,600 in specific ownership tax, and $350 in interest. This PID, we have recently entered into a contract to work on the roads in that area. So we anticipate the ending 2018 fund balance, we have spent that down. So we are anticipating about $35,000 of additional work next year. The SDA insurance of $2,500 and the associated tax collection expense for the property tax of $600 for a net impact to fund balance of $4,359.
Okay. Any questions on this? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much.
All right, thank
Any
you.
other business?
Oh, I took 7 minutes. I'm sorry.
So noted. Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.